Hi everyone, Alex here again with another image review. It's still May and I'm still working through mainly pictures from my recent trip to the Bahamas to Tiger Beach. As you can see on the screen, lots of tiger sharks to look at, but there are some other images I've processed in the last week or so to share here. So there's a few pictures of Malibu nudibranchs from Canada. There's a random spotted eagle ray from Galapagos. There's some moray eels from the Philippines, a Red Sea stingray, some anemone fish, and some harlequin sweetlips from Malaysia, and a grey seal from the UK as well. So we'll get to those in a sec, but I'll start with the tiger sharks and the other goings on from Tiger Beach. So this is the third sort of set of images of the tigers that I've processed out. I mean, they're kind of all one selection. It's just the order that I've chosen to process them out in. It's a while since I've done this trip, so I wanted to process a good number of images out from the trip so that I have a nice new selection from this destination. So I'll just run through them. Anyway, we'll have a look at them. So as always, the data's on the right hand side. In Bahamas, I was shooting with my Sony A1 and the 28 to 60mm lens all the time, and I was mostly using the FCP, but I was sometimes using the WACP lens. That's not recorded in the EXIF. But but you can generally tell which one it is you can't always actually from the pictures. And then the Canada shots are shot with Nikon D850, Galapagos back to Sony A1, and again with the FCP or the WACP depending on the dive. Then into the Sony A1 in the Philippines and so on. So I'll come back to those at the end. Right, let's get cracking. So this is a picture of Vinny with one of the tigers just coming through. Just a standard tiger and diver shot. But this was taken on the first day, just wanting really just to bag some of these classic diver shots, which are, although I'd rather shoot pictures of the sharks as sort of individual portraits, it is important from a magazine point of view, particularly from a scuba diving magazine point of view, to have shots with people in them. So that's why I've prioritised that they're not loading properly again. Oh, why is that not loading? I can assure you it is sharp, it's just not decided not to load all of a sudden. So is this one going to load? Yeah. And that one? No. So we'll have to look at this one small then. So there it is small. It doesn't even look sharp small, but I can assure you it is sharp. I don't know why it's not loaded. If I zoom in, it doesn't load. So, right, anyway. That second shot is just a tiger shark with a diver. It's Mehmet in the background there and the boat. Again, it's nice to get shots with people in every now and again and the boat in. It gives some scale. It gives some human interest. It gives a background interest. It gives some depth to the picture. But particularly from a magazine perspective, I think having that person in the background is really, really valuable. I think that sort of picture will be used by a scuba magazine more than a really nice portrait of the shark on its own. But of course, I went there to get pictures of the sharks, not without divers. But I make sure I process out a few with divers in. Here's another one of the big sharks. I think this one's tequila. Cruising underneath the boat. Just a nice big tiger shark under the boat. Very classic Tiger Beach type shot. And then making use of the other end of the FCP WACP lens, so zooming into the 60mm end and creating this more compressed portrait of the shark, trying to make it feel big and really filling the frame with the shark was the intention with this shot. Lovely. There's obviously loads of detail if we zoom in. You can see all the detail around the eye because it's really making the most of that shot. And then on a cloudier day, a panning shot of one of the tigers moving over the seagrass. I really like the way that the seagrass streaked on the seabed, so I particularly did a lot of the longer exposure shots while shooting over the seagrass. I think that added extra texture to the blur. I really like the blurring that you can see here underneath her chin. there where just the light and the strobe interact, the ambient light and the strobe interact. And I like the sense of movement at the back of the shark. And this is just a standard accelerated panning shot of the shark. So panning faster than the shark is moving, using front curtain sync, and that creates the freezing flash when I press the shutter, and then the accelerated panning creates a lot of blur, and that blurring goes backwards off the shark, so it gives the impression, the correct impression, that the shark is swimming forwards, because sharks aren't big ones for swimming backwards, as you well know. I think this is the same shark, actually. Yeah, this is the same shark, but different day. Now she's swimming up and over these lovely soft corals growing on top of the reef, and creating a pretty reef environment. This is one of those shots that was, we were all kind of in a line along the edge of the reef, so everyone kind of got very similar shots as the shark swam through the frame, and I was able to get this nice one of the tiger shark. And I really like the fact that these young bluehead wrasse here to the side. And I like that you've got a little bit of reef environment. As I said before, they're not the most amazing reefs, but there's plenty of life on them, and if you get in the right spot, I think they do yield nice reef and shark pictures, which is something that I always like with any big animal, is to work that opportunity in. And here's the same location, actually. I think, yeah, the same corals. This time with a male bluehead, and now with a change of shark, a lemon shark, as the subject in that one. I think I zoomed in tighter on this one. It's quite a bit tighter. That's at 60mm, whereas this one's at 47mm. So definitely FCP. I would have always chosen to use FCP on the reef shots anyway, but you can see that one is at 47mm. I think this previous one might be WACP, actually, looking at the XF. Anyway, the tiger on the reef and the lemon shark on the reef are FCP, but at the two ends, or one at 47mm, which is pretty wide, and then one at zoomed into 60mm. And I suspect I zoomed in more tightly on the lemon shark, not only because it's a smaller shark, but also I think probably to keep some people out of the frame, because it was quite congested, around where the action was. This is a really beautiful shot, I feel, in terms of just beautiful light in the shot. Just a reef shark cruising through. There's another reef shark behind, and then if you look, a tiger behind that, and then a final reef shark at the background. And these are sharks swimming up the bait trail. The way these dives are set up is you hope to get current. The current carries the smell away from the bait, and that smell, the sharks tend to follow their noses up the bait train, up to the bait. And we set the bait up in this area on this afternoon so that the bait smell went down towards the sun in the afternoon. We had the right tide to be able to do that, and that meant that the sharks were just coming out of the sun, so it made for very good opportunities with sharks and sunbursts. And this shot, I think I really like the sun rays in this one. Very pretty shot. Nothing special on the settings, just it's getting later in the day, so yeah, not that lower ISO. And then this is the same dive, same setup, but now with a tiger shark coming in. Just coming in and getting those sun rays behind it. It wasn't always easy to get the perfect sun rays with the tigers. The tigers stay quite low to the seabed, but I'm happy with these shots. And this is the same dive again, but now zoomed in a little bit tighter. I was also experimenting by using the lenses more zoomed in to create this kind of compressed perspective to make the sharks look really big and beefy in the frame, because obviously tiger sharks being one of the largest predators in the ocean, you want them to look big in the pictures. And this is another one from the same dive, shark cruising through, with that nice sunburst behind it and other sharks. I think actually the feeding bucket is behind this shark here. And I'm using the shark to hide the feeding bucket because, it's not really safe to go down current of the feeding bucket. So you have to kind of figure out how you're going to get the angle with the sun, but not get the feeding bucket in the picture. Then to give others a go, I remember I left that kind of being right in front of it with the sun to let other photographers get in, and I went off and photographed this lemon shark that was sleeping on the seabed off beyond in another part of the dive site. And this is just a sleeping lemon shark portrait. And I think I did quite a few shots of this. I think there's a head-on shot in one of the others, which is actually the same shark. Okay, next picture is one of those lone tigers on the seabed shots. This is another favourite of mine, I think. I really like this style of photo of the shark. I wouldn't want my whole portfolio to be of them, but I think this one and one of the ones in the first batch is my favourite of the bigger scene shots with tigers in. Obviously, it doesn't make the shark look particularly big, and unless you know this environment and good at scaling it. But nonetheless, I think it's a great way to show the sharks with all this beautiful marine habitat around them. Right. Back with strobes on. Another beautiful day of conditions. Lovely clear water. Lots of ambient light. And managed to get enough strobe onto this shark to really pick it out in that ambient light. And then another shot I processed really because it had a diver in it, and I wanted some nice clean shots of shark and diver. This is a very good looking tiger shark, nicely proportioned, good fins, and all of that. And I think that's Olaf in the background, who I think just jumped in off the boat. And we do these dives heavily weighted, so your entry into the dive is not your most elegant. And yeah, I don't particularly like the fact that Olaf is just breathing out. And he's actually kind of looks a bit out of control because we all were when we jumped off the boat. You dive so heavily weighted, you basically jump in and then you're on your way down without that normal neutral buoyancy of diving. But I rather like this pose of Olaf's, which is not intentional, but he's kind of struggling with his buoyancy. But it looks like, because he's breathing out and his arms out to the side, that he's worried about the tiger shark. And I can assure you, all that Olaf would have been worried about was, what settings to get dialed in and get shooting. But I like the fact that he seems to be reacting to the shark. Although I think he's looking at me because he's going, "Oh, sorry for coming into your photo." But actually, I like the fact that I've got a diver in the photo. Right, I'll show some settings for these next ones. The others are a bit boring. So a panning shot. At a 25th of a second, shot with fast panning to try and get some blur into the picture, and yeah, just a tiger moving with panning over the seagrass and creating kind of a pleasing little shot. And another very similar one from the same dive. This one done with camera movement. You can see there's a swirliness and a zoom. I think this is done with camera movement and with zooming to create this kind of exploding zoom effect, but with also more textures going on. It's not a simple exploding zoom effect. Certainly not to everyone's taste, but when you're shooting the same subject, lots of times, it's good to mix it up. And I think in this case here, because I was on an angle where I couldn't keep other divers' bubbles out the picture, and I couldn't keep the bait bucket out the picture, the zooming was quite a good way of hiding a lot of that mess. You can see that there's a bait bucket here, and that's a bait bucket there. But because it's so blurred, you can't, only someone who knows what's going on would kind of spot it, really. So it was a good way of hiding that. And this is another one at the same time, taken in the same way. These both look a bit dark to me. My screen brightness is not turned up. Right. Back over the seagrass, and a nice tiger coming in. This one here shot with the lens zoomed quite wide out, so it's stretched the tiger rather than compressed the tiger. I think it makes it look a bit skinny, but I like this animated angle. This shark wasn't sucking the bottom like the ones that are more used to it being a wilder shark. It was much more frisky, and that gave it, I think, some really nice poses away from the seabed. So I like that shot for that reason. This is one of the groupers that we encounter on the dive. So yeah, this is a nice little sponge here, and the grouper was sheltering down there. So it's just a chance to get sort of a pretty reef shot, really, in the middle of a tiger shark dive. This grouper, and I knew if I stuffed my camera down, I would probably get the sun hidden. This was shot completely blind. I just stuffed the camera down and took the picture of the grouper. I just positioned the strobes before I pushed it in, shoved it in, and got the shot. This is the same dive. At the end of the dive, there was this really nice rainbow parrotfish hanging around, and I really like rainbow parrotfish. They are quite shy as a species. You don't always get that many opportunities to shoot them, so with one hanging around, I took this picture. I would have loved it to be closer to the camera, but it was close enough, I think, because I was set up shooting sharks. I got plenty of strobe onto it because I was generally shooting these bigger scenes. I'd love to have filled the frame with it, and I would really like that fish wasn't in front of it. which is both out of focus and very bright. I could clone it out. It would clone out very, very simply, but I don't really want to mark the picture as manipulated. I'm not massively against manipulating pictures, but I'll always mark them as such. Obviously, my photo agent requires that, and I like to have that on my own website as well. So that kind of tends to put me off because I don't want hundreds and hundreds of pictures all marked as manipulated. So I'll only do it when it really, really, really needs it. And you could argue this one needs it, but I don't think the picture's special enough to deserve it. It's just nice to have a nice rainbow parrotfish picture. Back over the sand again. This is a lone shark with its shadow. I like that there's a little, I thought it was a yellowtail snapper, but it's a rainbow runner, I think. Cruising below it, and it's got a shadow as well. And just a pretty scene. Nice blue water, available light shot, no strobe in this one to get that shadow, and then just a little bit of selective processing to take the blue tint off the shark. Same dive, also available light, lemon shark with this little bunch of pilot fish, barjacks they are, swimming in front of it, cruising over the seabed. Kind of just a pretty little scene. And yeah, this is a reef shark with the sunburst above. So there's quite a lot of these sharks. Another pair of reef sharks. This was a dive actually. This is the one dive in the whole trip where we didn't get a tiger shark, and it was the most beautiful day. So, and because it was so nice conditions, I asked them to take the boat as shallow as we could on Tiger Beach, which for those that have been there know it's not a real beach. It doesn't come up to the surface. So we went to the shallowest point, and it was unbelievably beautiful conditions, lovely blue water. And we got reef sharks very quickly on this dive, but the tigers wouldn't come across to us. And maybe it was because we were so shallow, I don't know. They could see tigers from the boat, but they didn't come over to the bait. Maybe the bait trail smell was going the wrong direction for them or something like that. But as a result, we didn't get tigers on this boat. So we only stayed there in this beautiful place for one dive. But it gave us the chance to shoot a lot of reef sharks in really, really perfect, easy conditions. The blue is very much kind of out of gamut blue. It was so amazingly blue. But really nice to see them. And then this is later that same day. I'm sure that's come up on my screen. This is later that same day with that on a dive close by, but not quite as beautiful place in terms of the light and everything. And this is a tiger coming in, and that's Nick there standing up to photographing him. And I like that he was standing up at this point. He was probably only standing up to give his back a break from kneeling down, but it's really nice with him standing up. And yeah, the juxtaposition of the shark and him, I think, worked really nicely in the frame actually. So yeah, it's a pretty cool one actually. So although it was very much a grab shot, and I'm sure he was wishing that I wasn't in there, and I was wishing he wasn't there, so we could get a nice clean shot of the shark. Actually, I really like it that I've got a diver in it. So I'm probably going to try and process a few more diver shots because they are useful for this type of thing. Right, let's get back to it. Right, that's the end of the tigers. So just show you the settings again. These are all FCP. Right, and then on to Canada, where I wanted to process out a few Malibu pictures. We had very poor visibility, particularly in Hooded Nudie Bay, which is where these shots are taken near to God's Pocket Resort, for those that know the area. And my shots from the trip, there were loads and loads of nudies, and it was really beautiful, but they were so silty. It was horrible conditions. And when testing the Backscatter Exterminator software, I ran these pictures through it, and it did a remarkable job. You know, it's kept all the fine detail on the Malibu hoods, but it's got rid of the horrible backscatter that these pictures had at one point. This one was really bad. Very graphic composition with all the fronds of the seaweed or the kelp going across it, but it was full of backscatter, and I just ran it through Backscatter Exterminator, and I much prefer the cleaned up version. So I think these pictures, you can see here how much bits there are in the water, because this is where it hasn't kind of cleaned, because it's not really backscatter, and I left that in. I haven't cleaned it perfectly, and I will mark these as heavily backscatter cleaned in the captions, But yeah, it's just nice to rescue these shots, really, because it was a spectacular dive. It was just frustrating for photography because it was so silty on this particular day when we went there. But yeah, it was really so really nice to see these. It takes me back to the dive wonderfully. Even and I wouldn't have processed them as they were because they were just too bitty. Right. Galapagos and a eagle ray cruising against the current. You can see that this eagle ray is working hard to get through here, and is also you can see it's staying low to the seabed because the current was so strong. And because the current was strong, it kind of only had one choice of route, which was to swim straight past me. So it's not the most elegant pose, but it was a really nice close pass from an eagle ray. This was a series of backlit shots I did of this pair of moray eels. I've already processed one in colour. When I shot them, I was kind of planning them in black and white, and they actually look so nice in colour that the first one I processed out was in colour, and then I decided I'd process another one from the series out in black and white. I don't think I'll process any more. A colour one and a black and white one are enough. But yeah, nice to get these white-eyed morays looking good. I was trying to get a shot with both of them with the mouths open, but I quite like the fact that there's one with the mouth open and one with the mouth closed in this frame. So yeah, that's quite a nice thing. Right, Red Sea now, and this is just the detail of a blue-spotted stingray, a common Red Sea fish. I obviously had a macro lens on, tight macro lens on. It probably had the Sony 90 on yet, and this one was the 90mm, but with a Tamron 90. Anyway, with the Sony 90mm on, just able to create a nice little frame, an abstract image of the blue splotches on the blue-spotted stingray. And that blue contrasts very nicely with its kind of olivey, beigey background colour of these rays. And yeah, made for a nice abstract, weird looking picture. And then the final three pictures, one is from Malaysia. This is just a pair of pink anemone fish in an anemone from a million years ago, but it just popped up on when I was looking for new vertical pictures from Malaysia, and I thought I'd process this one out. This is underneath the jetties at Kapalai Resort. I processed out a couple of shots from this just because I'd ignored them at the time. This is from a long time ago, and it was from an era where I wasn't as disciplined on my camera settings as I am now. So I would now shot this, although this is shot with a crop sensor camera, I would shoot this at least f8 on a crop sensor camera. This is not shot with a D2X. And I shot this at f6.3. And just that more open aperture, you can see what it's done to the corner sharpness. There's just a blurring of the subject matter up into this corner, see? And it'll be the same on the other corner as well. Just blurred detail. And that's simply because of my aperture selection. And obviously it's easier to shoot at f6.3, so that's why I was doing it. But I really should have been more disciplined. And it was shots like this that, or years of shooting like this, that taught me that, yeah, you can get a perfectly nice shot like this, but even better if you get a shot that's just as nice, but technically really perfect. And so, yeah, these days I shoot with a much more closed aperture. F13 is my go-to aperture, as you will probably well know from my wide-angle shots on full frame. The aperture on this one says f25, but that's because it's with a Nikonos 30mm lens on the D850 where it didn't, or D5 in this case, where it didn't report the correct aperture. So this is actually the equivalent of about f14, I think f25 is. And this is another shot that I processed out because I ran it through Backscatter Exterminator. It was quite a messy original shot, and actually the version of this that I have on my website at the moment is much more cropped than this, and one of the main reasons I cropped it was to have less area to clean of backscatter. But now with Backscatter Exterminator, this is the sort of shot that Backscatter Exterminator loves, with the very clear subject, an obvious subject, and then a background. It's able then to clean the pictures, I think, much better than if you have a really content-filled picture. And it's preserved the whiskers, it's preserved the sun rays, and this is how it looked on the dive. And so, yeah, it's great to restore it to that. Right, I hope that was an interesting run through. I probably will be processing a fair amount more. Hopefully these pictures will also be on my website soon, so you'll be able to look at them on there and also read the camera settings by pressing the image info button on my website. But thank you very much again for watching. I know people have sent me lots of positive feedback about me doing these sessions, so I will keep doing them whenever I have new pictures to show. Thank you very much.